Fullness is a perceptual description which can be thought of as emergent based on the way that we have our weight relating to our size. And if we recall, our weight and our size are two of the most important and functional properties that allow us to change the sex perception of a voice. And this is because, once again, if we recall, we can think of weight and size as being almost expressing some degree of androgenization, right? So let's say that you are exposed to testosterone, that changes the vocal structures just a little bit, and we can almost think of this soft pairing between these sort of perceptual features of weight and size as the sort of result of androgen exposure. Now, of course, it is not one-to-one like that, but having that in mind really helps us understand why understanding the intersection between weight and size is so important. So this is actually more like a meta variable, right? Like we talked about weight as a variable, and we talked about size as a variable, and now fullness is a new description based on how the two interact. So really, here's the key with fullness that we like to preach. Fullness is this interesting idea because oftentimes what people struggle with the most is this idea of resonance versus weight. How do you know if your resonance is high enough? How do you know if your weight is low enough? We're going to go ahead and make a beautiful graph here to show everyone how this works. But basically, the reason why fullness is so amazing is because all of you were able to instantly start saying, oh, that's hollow. Oh, that's overfull. Oh, now we're starting to hear it be more full, right? Well, the wonderful thing about this is that means you are actually hearing incredibly important intersections of voice. So we're going to go ahead and make a little graph here together interactively, okay? So a little X and a Y, mostly equivalent in size, okay? And then we're going to go ahead and label these. So on this side, we're going to have lightweight, and I'll go ahead and make that by itself. Ah, oh, oh. Your turn. Can you make some light sounds for us while I populate this?
Ah, hello.
Good.
1, 2.
Now make a heavy sound for us.
Aw, man, what in the world?
Yep, lovely. Now, can you give me high resonance, voiceless? Yep, and we'll say this is small size slash high resonance, kind of the same thing. And now let's do it low and large. Yeah, wonderful. And let me add this little thing down here, large and low resonance, wonderful. All right, and now we have the basis of what we're going to be talking about here made up. When you're thinking about hollow, and everyone was able to identify hollow, hollowness is actually the combination of low resonance and light weight. And what we see a lot in trans feminine voices is they go to try and feminize the voice, and they often have this kind of like quality about them where they're a little bit too hollow. And really what that's saying is that they've changed their vocal weight accurately, but they don't have enough resonance. So what they would need to do is raise their resonance enough to end up over here, okay? So this is like the intersection of things. And what's interesting is if you try to think about this as light and large, or, you know, I'll go ahead and get rid of low resonance. I'll just get light and large. It's a little easier to look at. But, you know, if you try to think about juggling these things, it's a lot harder than if you just think about their resultant sound. Everybody was able to hear hollow, but I doubt a lot of people were hearing hollow as light and large vocal tract with lighter sound. So this allows us to reduce the complexity of us understanding where we are with our resonance versus our weight. And when we did the overfull sound here, really that's like this area up here. That means, yes, we have smaller vocal tract, we have higher resonance, but we're also too heavy with the sound and we end up here. We can think that an average masculine voice is going to end up in this kind of quadrant down here, and the average feminine voice is going to end up somewhere in this quadrant over here, and these deviations towards hollowness or fullness give us important information about our vocal weight and our resonance relative to each other. I'm going to go ahead and put fem/full here. And then I'll go down here and put mask/full. And I would like to just move around this graph with you a little bit, Clover, and maybe we could just show them how some of these things sound.
Okay, I can't see the graph, so...
Oh, no worries. I'll describe what we're gonna do. All right.
Okay.
So we're gonna go from hollow, which is a large vocal tract and light vocal sound, and then we're simply going to try and add smaller vocal tract, higher resonance, and end up on a full feminine sound. So 1, 2, ba 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 bear. Your turn.
Ba, 1, 2, ba 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 bear, bear. Let me get a little more full. Ba 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 bear, bear.
Yes, not bad. Now, did everybody notice that Clover kind of did this? Oh, starting to want to cheat a little Buzzy. Ooh, and then that way. So that was a bit of a hook around. We like that. Now, let's go ahead and do, whenever we're doing these clear gender modifications from masculine to feminine, what we're really doing is riding this balance line between weight and resonance. So, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Pitch is not a part of this graph, Wanfi. That was a wonderful question. Or Wanfil, I think it was Wanfi. Yep, so when we just move purely across in this gender axis, we're existing mostly within this sort of normal boundary of what we would expect voices to operate inside. So it's like when we deviate from that, we end up with a hollowness or a buzziness. So, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Your turn?
1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Yep, and that was the hollow going to full fem. Now let's do masculine going to fem. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
1, 1,
1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Wonderful. Now let's go ahead and do this same thing here, but then what we're going to do is we are going to accidentally go too heavy. This is a common mistake for trans feminine speakers. So we're going to go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Yes, and now let's add another complex step to this. How about we do that and then lighten so everyone can hear us go from overfull to full fem. So we can go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
1, 1,
1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Yes. Now, those are some of the most common mistakes that trans feminine speakers make. Most trans feminine speakers accidentally end up pairing their reduction of vocal tract size, their raising resonance, with getting heavy. And so this sort of quadrant 1 sound, this overfull quality, is kind of what has been commonly referred to in the trans community as, oh, you've got that nasally trans voice or whatever, you know? Now, another thing that we can see, another common trans feminine mistake is this. And we'll talk about trans masc in a second because there's a lot to gain here as well from that. But check this out. So another common trans fem mistake is they'll start here, you know, we'll start to raise the resonance, we'll start to lighten the weight, but then the resonance will plateau. And then we'll get stuck here and we'll stay out of this zone which we're looking for, which sounds like this. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what it's like when we shift the weight, but we didn't quite raise the resonance. Go ahead.
1,
1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, exactly. Someone says, just to reiterate, to get a fem voice from hollow, it's just a resonance adjustment, right? Yep. That's the observation to be made here. Indeed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to end up in that hollow space again, and then we're going to fork up and find good fem. So 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
1,
1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Yes, exactly. So I hope everyone can see from this that it's actually way easier to think about the way Andrea says, wow, this graph made me understand everything. Yes, indeed. Ooh. And here's the key is that it's much harder to think about this as vocal weight independent from resonance. If you try to think about combining your vocal weight with your resonance, it's quite difficult because you're juggling two things at once. But when you think about this entire sort of topological space, when you think about this entire little sort of field, we can easily hear hollow. We can easily hear overfull. And that allows us to figure out if we are where we are. And yes, literally Anna says, notice that pitch isn't a factor here. That's correct. These properties work the same regardless of what pitch you're at. And of course, there are some qualities where pitch will start to influence things. Someone says, I love this graph. It's so helpful for beginners. Wonderful. I'm glad it's so helpful for you. Understanding intersection is so important. One of the biggest complaints that I hear from students, both in private lessons and in group lessons, is that they have trouble sort of adding things together. I often hear a lot of students be like, okay, well, I know I've got this piece and this piece and this piece and this piece, but how do I, when I try to add them together or combine them, something happens with the voice and it doesn't work the way I want it to. Well, that makes a lot of sense because you see, we don't control our voice that way. We don't want to think about the voice as a bunch of little pieces that we then slot into the right place. It is actually easier for us to do everything at once than it is for us to do each thing one thing at a time. And this is what intersection allows us to do. We may think of intersection as increasing the complexity because there's two things going on, but at the actual user level, understanding intersection reduces complexity. It makes it a more direct experience. So instead of trying to balance your weight against your size, you're simply going to try to hit what happens when the two things are combined, period. It saves us a step in the whole process. So let's do some more of these. Let's go ahead here and start overfull and go to hollow. One.
1.
Yeah, and you'll see what's interesting is this diagonal that we just moved across. This diagonal is like the opposite of what we normally see standard voices operating on. This is like the affectated quality. Someone says it's good that Clover is doing it too. It makes it easier when you have a masculine voice of reference in general. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing is it's not just so much that, it's that having multiple people demonstrating these sounds makes it way easier. And that's one of the benefits of the group class that we have is that we have 3 teachers that participate in things, and you get to hear it really manifesting in different teachers. So very good. Now let's go ahead and try some more of these. Let's go ahead here and try to do, how about we keep our, let's go ahead here and go, let's do like a Z. I've actually never tried this. Let's try it. So we'll go, 1. Okay, go ahead here.
Okay, so
Hello. 1.
1.
Yeah, not bad. Good. Now, what other letter? How about we try an A?
Oh God.
Yeah, we'll do a sort of a baseless triangle. So 1. Oh, that's hard. Hold on, let me try that again. I messed that one up. 1. Would you consider these demonstrations good exercises? Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, there's no such thing as like necessarily a good or bad exercise. Doing literally anything with your voice is going to be better for your voice. Yeah, we're gonna do voice anarchy here. So 1. There we go. That's the triangle without a base. Wonderful.
Okay.
1.
1.
Good.
That's tricky.
It is tricky. It's
I don't
fun,
even know
though.
how to conceptualize
I've never done the
just
middle.
Small.
Yeah, just small. I kind of did it as like a femme passing voice, but heavy. Like
Gotcha.
like something like that or whatever, which isn't necessarily like excessively full. Someone says C next. Sure, let's try a C.
Oh goodness.
Ooh, this one's fun. Very spherical. Ooh, my C looks so ugly. Okay, so here we go. So we're starting overfull, and then we're going to kind of lightly pass over average fem into hollow, and then we're going to go into masculine. Ooh, wasn't that cool? Your turn.
Okay.
Okay. So starting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6, 7, 8, 9.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Yes. Okay. This is why, like, physical descriptions of how to, like, change resonance to me don't really make a lot of sense, because it's not really about, oh, someone said do a heart next. Okay, I'm gonna cover you up for a second now, Clover. So let's do a heart. So we're gonna draw a heart here, and we're gonna go ahead and do this. Oh, hold on, let me get an even better one. Aww. Okay, that heart kind of looks not like the best. Is that okay? All right, so here we go. Let's try it. So let's see here. We're gonna start large and somewhat hollow.
So that like maybe like this is more so like we're pseudo hollow, kind of more in the masculine area. So like let's try this. So one. Wait, one.
Close. That was pretty good. All right, your turn. This one's tough. I like the, particularly, this is amazing practice for me. I hadn't even considered this. That sort of drop at the middle of small, almost allowing a tiny bit of size gain back. Anyways, it's very fun. Go ahead, try that one.
Okay. So starting off, pseudo hollow. One. That's
good. It's tough, right? I don't think I heard this dip in resonance at the top. That's the tough.
I wasn't sure what to do there.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I kind of did it in mine where it was just like one. Like I didn't necessarily go all the way to like a masculine sound, but I sort of let it come in a bit.
One.
Yeah, just opening the space a little more. Anybody else have some shapes in mind for us to play with? This is such good exercise. I'm so glad that everyone is so receptive to this. Clover and I have been working on things like this for a while, and really this sort of description of hollowness, fullness is something that Clover sort of prophesized. And one of the main ways that we've been training resonance in our students for a long time is having someone go from hollow to full. But having it in this kind of shape or having it in this kind of quality tends to make it a little easier. Can you do an example going through each axis, like large to small with neutral weight? Yeah. Oh, hold on. Yeah, neutral weight. It's not really heavy, not really light, getting larger and smaller, and then I'll try to keep neutral resonance. It's hard for me to do like neutral resonance because my default is really small. What does large small mean? Small meaning high resonance, large meaning low resonance. We're referring to the size of the vocal tract. So vocal tract size here, it just makes it a little easier for people to grab onto when they're thinking about resonance instead of raise your resonant frequency, So size is what we're talking about here. All right, Clover, you get to talk about this.
Hi. So this is a slightly more accurate per transformation way of thinking about the shared size and weight space. So as we talked about previously, right? If you want to go back to the Cartesian graph, Z, just for a sec. So as we talked about previously, you can actually be large and heavy, but too large, right? Or you can be small and light, but too small, and still wind up in this underfull or overfull space, respectively. And this Cartesian graph doesn't really allow for that so much. So if we go back to the UFO fam space, that's just a little bit more functional when you start to think about extremes, right? So if we have an underfull feminine sound, right, by UF, and we get smaller, hello, we might end up at a pretty reasonable space. But then if we continue to get smaller, hello, we end up again in that overfull space, right? Because we've continued to decrease size past what is typical. So it's a little easier to think of it as a sort of crosshatch like this. So yeah, and I also want to point out that while we have listed these things as feminine, androgynous, and masculine, they are not necessarily going to be perceived as such. So it's like Z pointed out, you don't necessarily have to have a small light sound or a super small and light sound to be perceived as feminine. And I want to say too that if all I were to change about my speech was my size and my weight, I might not sound super feminine. And I did this a couple of times in our demonstrations. I might just sound younger. I might just sound like literally a less androgenized version of myself. So check it out. Hello, 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 hello. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, it's not necessarily a very feminine sound, but it is balanced, right? And so there are more things that can be changed, but this is necessary for communicating on an auditory level a certain degree of sexual development. And that's what we're targeting here.
It's also great because it allows us to decouple. Like, this kind of makes it almost seem like, oh, in order to sound feminine, I need to be here. And in order to sound masculine, I need to be here. But as we can see, you can have androgynous voices that are, you can have androgynous voices that come in like all sorts of different balances of different amounts of vocal weight or whatever, right? So it really lets us be more flexible with what we're thinking about. And so very useful. Also, I'm sending an emoji combination here in chat, which is very cute. So UFO fam. Okay, great. Now, lastly, there's one other thing that we're going to talk about before we go into breakouts. Okay, and this is the androgenization space. So this is like a perceptual thing, fullness, right? But if we think about what does all of this represent, why does it tend to work this way? It tends to be based on our socially reinforced perception of how we hear androgen development in voices. So for instance, this one has size, negative weight, and negative size going in the same space, right? Which is a little weirder because large would be like plus and small would be like negative and light would be like, it changes the positive or negative a little bit. But basically here, less size and less weight are going to run in the same direction because they're suggesting less androgen exposure together. And as size increases and as weight increases, it's going to suggest more androgen exposure. And this is why, coming back to these imbalanced qualities, overfull and underfull, that's why they tend to not sound exactly like normal or regular. It's because we really don't hear a lot of situations in day-to-day life where we hear a very noticeably smaller size, but a very noticeably larger weight. So it ends up in this sort of androgynous space here where the sort of features that may indicate sex development are mismatched a little bit. And there are certainly some notable cases, and that's why think about it. That's why when we did those corners, everyone wanted to say cartoon characters and character voices. It's really not that common to hear your average speaking voices existing in those spaces. Now, of course, we do hear some, but it's a bit rarer. And so you want to think about the way that this size and weight relate to each other as essentially a sort of androgenization layer. Okay.
I want to add too
Please
that
do.
if you if you don't have if you don't have this stuff, if you don't have androgenization down, and you make other changes to your voice to change your style of speech to be more feminine. Hello, 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 hello. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? This doesn't alone. This does not pass. Right? It just kind of sounds gay. So if we add both of those things together, right? Vocal gender and vocal sex. Hello, 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 hello. So here I am. I've de-androgenized my voice, and I'm going to take on more feminine speech patterns now. Hello, 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 hello. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? This is where we see that combination come into play. and we get kind of where we want to go.
And this is exactly why in the very beginning of our class, we did take note of how there are sex features in voice that we think about, and there are gender features in voice, right? The pattern of Clover's phonemes changing that way and lilting and the pitch contour changing, that's not something that's going to be based on your sexual development. That's something that's going to be based on your cultural exposure and where you are in the world and what cues you're picking up on in terms of communication. So both of them are very important. Now, once again, in this course, since this is the 6-week fundamental course, the majority of what we're dealing with here is the androgenization stuff. That's what this course is focused on. These are these sex elements that kind of form the foundational core for you being able to feminize or masculinize your voice, but there's still stuff that you can explore and play with involving style that makes quite a big difference. Now lastly, a couple other things. Weight and size work relative to each other, as we've learned, and this one kind of comes back to what we were just saying about that cultural exposure. Average perception of fullness tends to change depending on what culture you are. One example that we talk about is to speakers that are in the UK, American voices tend to sound more full. They tend to almost sound overfull, bordering that direction. And for American ears, voices in the UK tend to sound a little more underfull. There's a different normalized point in the cultures between where their sort of equilibrium of weight and size tends to exist. And this changes elsewhere depending on where you go and everything. And so do be aware of that. It's so important to listen and really sort of expose yourself to lots of different voices, especially lots of different feminine voices. And it doesn't necessarily have to be voices you like the sound of, just a lot of different feminine voices. That's more stuff that we talk about during style, but just to make sure everyone is also listening. The more you feed your ear, the better you're going to be able to calibrate kind of where your perception lies against everything else. And then lastly, Clover, can you talk a little bit about the connections to registration and singing?
Yes. Okay. So, about 1,001 people over the course of the past few years since we've really started taking this perceptual dominant approach to voice have asked me, well, shouldn't I not be in falsetto? I need to avoid falsetto, right? And it usually comes up when we're working on just finding a light sound. Or
let me jump in here. Some people may even heard singing teachers claim female voices don't have falsetto. That's so weird. Now continue, because that'll plug in.
It is odd. So yeah, we especially when we're working on light and large sounds, right? People will often say oh yeah, that's a falsetto sound because it sounds like Mickey Mouse and ha ha, right? And so I have the hardest time telling people, well, no, this model that we're working with doesn't mesh with ideas of really what registers are. So yeah, this is not something, if you're playing with this, that you would actually really want to be even worried about what is falsetto. It's more so the only thing that is relevant to the idea of falsetto that I would want you to be looking out for is, does my voice flip or yodel or break as I go to get higher and lighter? That is pretty much it. And no, we kind of want that all to be smooth, unless you're looking to yodel, in which case, great, cool. Z?
Yeah, the whole idea of falsetto is weird, right? Because when you actually listen to how people use it in colloquial description, it's whenever someone is in that higher register or the higher space of their voice, but they sound underfull. That's what it is. And that's why there's been this weird, I mean, I'm pretty sure it goes back in the singing literature over 100 years. Female voices don't have falsetto. And the reason why people claim this and why this claim has been so pervasive is because, let's say that you don't have any androgen exposure, your vocal tract is going to be small. So when you do get lighter as you go higher in that other register, it's going to sound normal. It's not going to sound underfull anymore. And so this discrepancy of it sounding like a masculine falsetto sounding underfull if it's not trained, and a feminine falsetto sounding full if it's not trained, makes people in the past who don't have the ability to sort of check this stuff or research this stuff deeper, 100, 200 years ago, it has a tendency for them to be oh, they have separate registers, they have separate effects. The idea of registers in singing and in traditional voice pedagogy is really a composite of different arrays, right? They're not their own baseline building blocks. They're descriptions about things that are woven together around a bundle of features. And so they can be useful in those singing contexts, but when we're trying to think about the voice more in this way, they're not so useful at that point. Like, we can do like a falsetto where it sounds like this, where I can like be a lot smaller with my falsetto, and I'm in my falsetto right now, but yeah, it doesn't really sound like that, like weird, it sounds like a little off, but it doesn't really sound like empty or hooty like we would normally anticipate falsettos to sound.
Yeah, it also doesn't help that there are dozens of different definitions of falsetto, so, pick your favorite. All right, so further connections to singing for fullness. Let's just do a quick equation, I guess, and this is more of an analogy, not a perfect one-to-one thing, but generally, you will find that overfull sounds, people will tend to identify with falsetto, and full sounds, hello, 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 full sounds, people will tend to identify with a mix or a mixed voice. And then overfull sounds, people will tend to identify with a beltier or chestier sound or registration. So again, that's not really one-to-one, but I prefer the way that we discuss it. So just if you find it easier, if you find it less confusing, I would say just call it light, small.
One other thing, if you are interested in singing and you want to feminize your singing voice, the biggest thing you're going to be looking out for is, once again, sounding underfull when you try to sing at really any place in your vocal range, because it's going to basically tell the listener like your vocal tract is larger relative to what it's anticipated to be. And so often when I'm singing, I'm just trying to snipe areas where my voice accidentally became a little too underfull. Also, Maverick Siet says, my voice hurts just listening. I'll just tell you right now, our voices don't hurt. Our voices feel
totally fine.
We are not stressing, hurting, or doing anything uncomfortable whatsoever with our voice, and if we were, we wouldn't be doing it. So
the changes that you would be making for this really do not require tons of muscular engagement. And that's one of the number one mistakes that people make, is they will kind of throw everything in the kitchen sink at a sensation, and they will be prescriptive with how creating a sound should feel, and they feel like, oh, it's a big change in sound, so it needs to be a big change in muscular effort, and that's just not the case. That's why earlier Z mentioned that sort of being intentionally as lazy as possible, intentionally, strategically lazy. That's what that is. It is understanding that, oh, okay, there is actually a very precise and not demanding way that I can make these changes that I want.